2 weeks. 14 days. That's all that was left. My tux was ready. The venue was paid in full. Invitations had been sent. My mom was crying almost daily happy tears, she said. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. Her name is Rachel. We met 4 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party. I spilled my drink on her dress. She laughed instead of yelling. That laugh, carefree, effortless, it stuck with me. I asked her out 2 days later. And now, after everything, 4 years, a mortgage, a dog, shared vacations, merged families, we were getting married. Or supposed to. I remember the exact moment the first crack appeared. It was a Sunday. I woke up earlier than usual. Rachel was gone. No note. No texts. Unusual, but not enough to panic. I figured maybe she went for coffee or a walk. By noon, she still wasn't home. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I called again. And again. Something felt off. Not just off, wrong. Around 2 p.m. she texted. Hey babe. Sorry, phone died. Went to brunch with Amanda. Love you. Brunch with Amanda. But Amanda was with me. She was helping me choose a surprise wedding gift for Rachel. We were at the mall all morning. I still had the receipts. The parking stub. And Amanda's presence right there beside me when I read the text. She leaned over, confused. That's weird. I didn't go to brunch with her. I haven't even talked to her today. I stared at the screen. My heart didn't race, it stopped. Dead silence in my chest. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I looked at Amanda. You sure? Positive. That was the first lie. And when someone lies about something so small, so easily, you start wondering what else they're hiding. That night, Rachel came home smiling, carrying a little bag from some boutique. Found the cutest lingerie for the honeymoon, she said, kissing me on the cheek. I played along. I smiled. Said I missed her. Pretended everything was fine. But my mind was already somewhere else. Searching. Calculating. Trying to put pieces together I didn't even know were part of a puzzle. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe next to me. What else didn't I know? The next morning, I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of Rachel humming in the kitchen. It used to make me feel lucky, like I had stumbled into some dream I didn't deserve. Now, it just made my skin crawl. That humming, that perfect little domestic routine, it all felt staged, like a well-rehearsed play. And I had just discovered the script was a lie. I played it cool. Said good morning, kissed her on the forehead, took my coffee to the porch. I needed air. I needed to think. My hands trembled slightly as I texted Amanda, can we talk? She replied almost instantly. Of course. You okay? No. I wasn't okay. But I needed to act like I was, at least until I had answers. We met at a coffee shop downtown. I sat across from Amanda, who looked just as rattled as I felt. She leaned in, voice low. I didn't want to say anything before, she began carefully, but Rachel's been acting weird for a while. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Amanda hesitated. Then she's been disappearing a lot. Canceling plans. Not answering calls. At first, I thought it was wedding stress. But now, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The silence between us said everything. I didn't want to believe it. I loved this woman. I was about to marry her. But I couldn't ignore what was right in front of me. That night, I waited until Rachel was asleep. Her phone sat charging on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't even glance at it. But now? Now I picked it up with hands that barely felt like my own. The passcode was still the same, my birthday. She hadn't even bothered to change it. I opened her messages. Heart pounding. Eyes scanning faster than I could even think. Most of it was normal. Family, bridesmaids, vendors. But then I saw a name I didn't recognize. Eli. No emoji. Just Eli. I opened the thread. And there it was. A private world. Dozens of texts. Long, intimate conversations. Late night, I miss you messages. Pictures. Jokes. Flirting. Plans. It had been going on for months. There was one message that hit me like a brick to the chest. Wish I could just call it off and be with you already. My breath caught. My vision blurred. My knees almost gave out right there beside the bed. I looked over at her sleeping peacefully, oblivious. The woman I thought I knew. The woman I was about to marry. The woman who was planning a future with someone else behind my back. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stood there, frozen, holding her phone, reading betrayal after betrayal as the woman I loved slept beside me like nothing was wrong. That was the moment I knew this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a drunken one-night thing. This was deliberate. This was a second life. A second relationship. And I was the fool she kept around for stability. I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't even stay in the bed. I sat on the couch in the dark, her phone still in my hand as if it had become some cursed object I couldn't put down. I reread the messages, trying to make sense of it all, when it started, how deep it went, what she was planning. The more I read, the colder I felt. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculation. She had been splitting herself between two lives so cleanly, so effortlessly that I never suspected a thing. She even sent him pictures of the wedding dress. My fiancée showing off our future to another man like it was a costume in a place she wasn't planning to perform. By morning, I had made up my mind. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Proof. Not just texts. Not just late-night suspicions. I needed something real, something undeniable. Because a part of me, despite everything, still wanted to believe there was a mistake. That maybe this Eli was just some fantasy, some online escape, some dumb flirtation that didn't mean anything. Maybe she hadn't acted on it. Maybe I could still forgive her. So I waited. I watched. Over the next 3 days, I became a ghost in my own home. I told Rachel I had extra shifts at work, which wasn't entirely untrue. I spent those hours parked in my car a few blocks from our house, following her when she left, tracking her movements like some desperate private detective. I hated myself for it. But I couldn't stop. The truth was all I had left. And then I saw him. Tall, lean, cocky smile. The kind of guy who walks like the world owes him something. She met him outside a cafe downtown. They didn't hug. They didn't kiss. Not right away. They just smiled at each other too warmly. Too knowingly. Then they went inside. Sat close. Whispered. Laughed. Her hand on his knee. His arm brushing hers. Every second felt like a slow knife twisting into me. I waited. An hour passed. Then they came out. Still no kiss. But the body language screamed everything I needed to know. It was real. That night I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I simply made a copy of everything. Screenshots. Photos. I even started writing a letter not to her but to myself. A reminder. A record. So that when she started crying and apologizing and spinning her web of justifications as I knew she would, I wouldn't forget how it felt to watch her lie to me with her whole body. But there was one thing still clawing at me. Why? Why do all this? Why plan a wedding, pick a dress, write vows, choose a song for our first dance when you're already slipping into someone else's bed? I didn't understand it. And part of me feared I never would. Because some betrayals don't come with explanations. Just scars. A week before the wedding, Rachel had her final dress fitting. She invited me to come along even though traditionally the groom isn't supposed to see the dress. She called it a modern twist, said she wanted me there because it meant something to her. I almost laughed. Not out loud, not yet, but inside, something bitter and twisted curled in my gut. How could someone look you in the eyes and speak about love with such ease, such practiced sincerity, while living a lie that deep? We arrived at the boutique just after noon. The place smelled like roses and rich perfume, like something out of a movie. The consultant greeted her with a hug, offered me a mimosa, and disappeared into the back to fetch the gown. Rachel was radiant, glowing in a way that would have taken my breath away just weeks ago. I watched her step into the fitting room, watched her laugh with the staff, watched her look at herself in the mirror like a queen preparing for her coronation. And the worst part? I still loved her. I hated her and I loved her, and I didn't know which feeling would win in the end. When she stepped out in the dress, everyone gasped, including me. It was perfect. Satin fitted at the waist with lace shoulders and a long, flowing train. She looked like every dream I'd ever had of this day. But all I could think about was Eli. Did she send him a picture of this dress, too? Would he be watching from the shadows, smiling, knowing he'd had her while I was buying flowers and finalizing catering? I swallowed the rage. The heartbreak. I smiled for the photos, held her hand when she got emotional, even kissed her on the cheek when she whispered, "I can't wait to be your wife." That one nearly broke me. I had to excuse myself, pretended I got a work call, stepped outside to breathe. The sky looked too blue, the world too normal. Cars passed. People laughed. Life didn't care that mine was unraveling by the hour. That night, we had dinner with her parents. Her dad gave me a firm pat on the back and called me son. Her mom toasted us, crying about how proud she was, how long she'd waited to see Rachel this happy. I nodded, smiled, raised my glass. And through it all, Rachel never flinched. She leaned on me, laughed at my jokes, stroked my arm under the table. Like nothing was wrong. Like we weren't both living inside a decaying fantasy. I kept thinking, maybe I'm the crazy one. Maybe I misread everything. Maybe I hallucinated the texts. The cafe meeting. The photos. But no. I had proof. Hard, undeniable evidence. And still, I couldn't stop hoping deep down, shamefully, that maybe she'd stop. Maybe she'd choose me. Maybe this was some last fling, some crisis of fear before the commitment, and she'd come clean, cry in my arms, beg for forgiveness. But she didn't. She just kept smiling, kept lying, and I kept bleeding where no one could see. 3 days before the wedding, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't have picked up. I hate surprises, especially during high-stress weeks like this. But something told me to answer, maybe intuition, maybe just the need for distraction. Either way, I swiped the screen and said hello. A man's voice answered. Calm, almost casual. But there was something sharp behind it, like a blade hidden beneath silk. Is this Mark? Yes, I replied slowly, already uneasy. There was a pause. Then he said, I think we need to talk about Rachel. My mouth went dry. I stood up, walked out to the back patio, away from anyone who might overhear. Who is this? I asked, though I already knew. I'm Eli, he said. I didn't know she was engaged. Not until this morning. I found your name by accident. I thought you deserved to know. The world seemed to tilt. My legs weakened. I sat down hard on the patio steps, trying to keep my voice steady. I already know. Eli sounded surprised. You do? I nodded, then realized he couldn't see me. Yeah. I saw the texts. The photos. I followed her once. I've known for a few days. He went quiet. Then, with a mix of guilt and anger, he said, she told me you were just a roommate. That the wedding was called off months ago. I wouldn't have gone near her if I'd known the truth. The thing was, I believed him. His voice didn't sound smug or defensive. Just tired. Like a man who realized he'd been used, just like me. She said it was over? I asked, almost laughing. We're 3 days away from the ceremony. Eli cursed under his breath. Then, softer, I'm sorry, man. I really am. We talked for a few more minutes. He told me everything. When it started almost 8 months ago. How she'd met him at a conference for work. How they began texting, flirting, meeting for drinks. Then nights. Then weekends. How she kept promising she'd leave me, but always delayed, always blamed timing, said I was fragile, that I'd fall apart if she left too soon. I didn't cry. Not then. Not with him on the phone. I just listened. Took it all in. The final nails in the coffin of the relationship I thought was sacred. Eli gave me his number, told me to call if I needed anything. Then he hung up, leaving me alone with the sound of birds and my own breathless disbelief. Inside, Rachel was singing in the shower. Our playlist, the one we built together for the reception, was playing. Her voice carried through the walls like a ghost of a life I no longer recognized. I stared at the ring box on the patio table. Silver. Simple. A symbol of something that once felt unbreakable. And for the first time since this all began, I knew exactly what I had to do. 2 nights before the wedding, Rachel suggested we have a quiet dinner at home, just the two of us before the chaos starts, she said with a smile. She lit candles, opened a bottle of wine, cooked one of my favorite meals, lemon rosemary chicken, mashed potatoes with garlic butter, green beans sautéed just right. She wore a soft white sweater, no makeup, her hair up in that loose, effortless knot that used to drive me crazy. Everything looked like love. Everything tasted like love. And yet every bite felt like chewing glass. I played along. I laughed at her jokes. I poured her wine. I told her the food was amazing. And the entire time, my heart pounded with rage, grief, and disbelief. I studied her, the way her eyes danced, the way she reached for my hand across the table, the way she talked about honeymoon plans as if nothing was wrong. How could someone fake it so perfectly? How could someone plan a life with one man while sleeping with another? She talked about beaches in Maui, hiking waterfalls, snorkeling with sea turtles. I nodded, smiled, even added to the fantasy. Maybe we should try paddleboarding, I said. You've always wanted to. I almost laughed at my own performance. We were 2 liars, only I was lying about knowing and she was lying to my face. After dinner, we curled up on the couch. She rested her head on my chest and whispered, I love you so much. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And in that moment, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Not peace. Not acceptance. But clarity. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't even going to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I was going to give her one last night in the fantasy she built. One last night of pretending. Let her feel safe. Let her believe she'd pulled it off. Because the truth was coming. And it would hit harder than anything she'd ever expected. She fell asleep early. I stayed on the couch, eyes wide open, staring at the dark ceiling, feeling the weight of finality in my chest. It wasn't just a relationship ending. It was the death of who I thought I was with her. The man who believed in her, trusted her, shared his future with her. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Instead, I began to write my vows, the ones I would never read at the altar. But she would hear them soon enough. Just not the way she expected. The night before the wedding was the rehearsal dinner. A small gathering of our closest friends and family at a charming little restaurant we'd reserved months earlier. String lights hung from the ceiling like stars, and the air was thick with laughter, clinking glasses, and stories about how perfect we were together. I played the part of the groom-to-be flawlessly, smiled on cue, hugged my future in-laws, gave a toast so heartfelt it made her mother cry. But beneath the surface, every word I spoke was dipped in poison. I wasn't toasting our love, I was burying it. Rachel looked stunning that night, a silky green dress that hugged her like it had been tailored just for her curves, her hair cascading over one shoulder. She clung to my arm like a woman deeply in love, and maybe in her own twisted way she was. But love without honesty is nothing. Love without loyalty is rot wearing perfume. As the night wore on, I caught glimpses of my parents looking at me with such pride. My father, rarely emotional, kept his hand on my shoulder longer than usual. My mom teared up during the slideshow of our photos. Beach trips, Christmas mornings, drunken karaoke nights. A perfect life captured in snapshots. But all I could see was the timeline of my slow betrayal. Later, after the toasts, Rachel pulled me aside. Her eyes sparkled as she said, "I can't believe we're doing this. Tomorrow, I get to be your wife." I forced a smile. "Yeah, tomorrow." She kissed me, deeply, confidently. She had no idea, no suspicion. I think part of her believed she was invincible, or maybe she'd convinced herself that what she was doing wasn't that wrong. That she could have both men in two separate compartments of her life, like drawers she could open and close without consequence. But I had one drawer left to open. When we got home, she collapsed into bed, exhausted and buzzing with excitement. I stayed up, checked that everything was ready. My speech, the printed messages, the photos, a few notes to key people, my parents, her maid of honor. I didn't want confusion. I wanted clarity. I wanted the truth to slice clean, with no room for her tears to muddy the waters. At 3 a.m., I finally sat on the edge of the bed, watching her sleep. This was the last night we'd ever share under the same roof. She didn't know it yet, but tomorrow she would. The morning of the wedding was picture perfect. Blue skies, warm breeze, the kind of day poets write about. Our venue, a beautiful vineyard just outside the city, looked like something out of a magazine. Rows of white chairs lined with flowers, the arch draped in sheer fabric and roses, the aisle freshly scattered with petals. It was everything we had dreamed of, or rather, everything I had dreamed of, back when I still believed dreams couldn't rot from the inside out. I arrived early, dressed, calm, focused. People buzzed around with excitement. The planner checked timelines. The florist did last-minute touches. The photographer snapped candid smiles. My best man handed me a small glass of whiskey and clapped me on the back. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. I was more than ready, just not for the wedding he thought. Guests began to arrive. Smiling faces, hugs, laughter. Her parents beamed with pride. My family took their seats, front row glowing. Everyone thought this was the happiest day of my life. And in a twisted way it was. Not because I was gaining a wife, but because I was finally shedding a lie. Back in the groom's suite, I looked in the mirror one last time. Straightened my tie. Smoothed my jacket. In my breast pocket I carried folded papers, screenshots, transcriptions, dates, photos. Everything neatly assembled like a legal brief. Not to punish, not to shame, just to reveal. 10 minutes before the ceremony, I asked the planner to delay. I said I needed 5 more minutes alone. She nodded, confused but polite. I walked out back, where Rachel waited with her bridesmaids in a cottage. I knocked. The maid of honor opened the door, saw me, smiled wide. "Oh my God. Bad luck to see the bride. Tell Rachel I need to talk to her. Alone." She hesitated, confused, but relayed the message. Moments later, Rachel appeared in her dress, radiant, glowing with nervous energy. "Is everything okay?" she asked, brushing a loose curl behind her ear. I held up the envelope. We need to talk. She looked at it. Then at me. Her smile faded just slightly. What's that? I handed it to her. The truth. She didn't open it right away. Just stared at me, a flicker of something, fear? Panic? Behind her eyes. Mark, what is this? I know, Rachel, I said quietly. About Eli. About everything. Silence. The kind that screams. Her face drained of color. Her mouth opened, then closed. No lies came. No excuses. Just a long, slow exhale like the air leaving a balloon. I was going to stop, she whispered, barely audible. I nodded. You already didn't. She looked down at the envelope, her hands trembling. Are you calling it off? No, I said. You are. You're going to go out there, take that microphone, and tell them the truth. I don't care what you say, but you will not let them believe in a love that never existed. She stared at me like I had slapped her. And maybe I had. With reality. She stood frozen for a moment, clutching the envelope like it burned her skin. Her lips moved slightly, searching for something, a rebuttal, a plea, a script. But there was no script for this. Not now. Not with the evidence laid bare in her hands and the altar waiting just a few steps away. Her bridesmaids watched from the doorway, faces twisted with confusion, a few beginning to sense that something was unraveling. Mark, please? Can't we talk about this later? She asked, her voice cracking for the first time. I shook my head slowly. Later is what liars ask for when they've run out of time. For a second, I thought she'd run. That she'd throw the envelope down and disappear into the vineyard, vanish from the shame like a coward. But instead, something changed in her eyes, not remorse, not love, but resignation. A slow, bitter acknowledgement that the walls she'd built were finally collapsing. We walked back toward the ceremony site in silence, side by side, but not together. She held her dress with one hand, the envelope with the other, every step heavier than the last. The music had already begun. Guests were standing. The officiant waited with a smile. Then he saw our faces and that smile faded. I stepped aside. She stepped forward. No music now. No fanfare. Just Rachel, standing at the front, trembling, thousands of petals at her feet, with the mic in her hand and 100 eyes watching. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at her parents. She didn't even look at the guests. She stared down at the floor, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't marry you, Mark. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Her father stood abruptly, confused. The officiant glanced at me, uncertain, but I gave him nothing. I just watched. Rachel continued. I lied. I made mistakes. I betrayed the man who gave me everything. And I don't deserve to stand here today. Her voice broke then. She looked up not at me, but at the people we'd invited to witness our union. People who believed in us. Believed in her. I know this will hurt a lot of you. I know this will embarrass and shock and confuse. But the truth matters more than any fairy tale. And I can't keep pretending. She stepped back. Dropped the mic onto the grass. Turned. And walked. No applause. No shouting. Just silence. A raw, brutal silence that filled every corner of that beautiful vineyard like a funeral wind. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. That chapter was already closed. And I had no interest in chasing ghosts. The vineyard emptied slowly. Some people lingered, stunned and whispering. Others left quickly, uncomfortable with the rawness of what they'd witnessed. I stood alone by the arch for a long time, letting the silence wash over me. No one approached. No one knew what to say. And honestly, I didn't need words. I had finally spoken the loudest truth by saying nothing at all. Rachel didn't come back. Not that day. Not the next. She texted once, a single sentence, I'm sorry for everything. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Not anger, not forgiveness. Just the end. Her parents called me, confused and hurt, but I didn't explain. It wasn't my job to repair the wreckage she created. My parents came over later that week, quiet and heartbroken. We sat in the living room for hours, not talking much, just existing in the shared space of disappointment and quiet relief that I had escaped a life built on deception. The following days were strange. The wedding was canceled, vendors refunded what they could, and I took time off work. I deleted the wedding playlist, boxed up the decorations, donated the floral arrangements to a local hospital. It felt like closing down a business that never opened. The life we were supposed to build, the home, the kids, the anniversaries, dissolved into nothing more than receipts and unspent plans. Eli and I spoke once more. Not to bond, not to blame, just to acknowledge that we had both been used. That we had both loved someone who treated honesty like an accessory, optional, temporary, disposable. He seemed more angry than sad. I understood. But for me, sadness had already burned itself out, leaving only a strange sense of clarity. In the weeks that followed, I began rebuilding not just routines, but myself. I went back to the gym. I reconnected with friends I'd unintentionally pushed aside during the wedding whirlwind. I started walking the dog longer, letting the silence settle where Rachel's voice used to be. And one day, I sat down and reread the vows I had written, the ones I never got to say. They weren't just promises to her. They were promises I still believed in. Loyalty, respect, trust, partnership. They weren't wasted words. They were values I still carried even if she didn't. And that's the thing about betrayal, it can destroy you if you let it. Or it can carve you open and show you the parts of yourself that still shine even after someone else tried to bury them. I didn't get the wedding, but I got something better. The truth, the freedom, and the quiet, powerful realization that sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do for yourself.